Have you ever felt exhausted, misunderstood, or weighed down by the constant expectations of others? Maybe you've been chasing validation, trying to please everyone, or staying in relationships that didn't truly nurture your soul. You might have believed that happiness depends on the presence of others, but here's the truth. Sometimes being alone isn't loneliness, it's liberation. It's not a punishment, it's a gift. And the very thing we often fear, solitude, might be exactly what we need to grow, reflect, and discover our true selves. Today, we will explore why you're sometimes better alone and how embracing solitude can change your life in ways constant companionship never can. Introduction. From childhood, we are taught that life is best lived with others, friends, family, partners. We are told that connection is happiness. And yes, human connection is beautiful and essential. But in the relentless pursuit of being together, we often overlook something crucial, the power of being alone. Being alone doesn't mean being lonely. It doesn't mean you are broken, rejected, or incomplete. Being alone is a conscious choice, a choice to step away from distractions, to pause, and to discover the treasures hidden within yourself. It is in solitude that you reflect, heal, and grow. Imagine a seed planted in soil. It needs quiet, undisturbed time to develop roots before it grows into a tree. Similarly, your soul needs periods of solitude to find its roots, your strength, your clarity, your purpose. In this talk, we'll dive into 4 key aspects of being alone. 1. Solitude as a path to self-discovery. 2. Independence and inner strength. 3. Clarity over confusion. 4. Growth in the space between. We'll explore stories, reflections, and practical wisdom to help you embrace the life-changing power of solitude. When was the last time you truly spent time with yourself? Not scrolling through social media, not attending meetings, not chatting with friends, but sitting quietly with just you. The modern world is filled with noise, notifications, messages, calls, social obligations. In this chaos, the voice of your own heart often gets drowned out. You stop asking the questions that matter. Who am I beyond the labels society has given me? What do I want, not what others expect of me? What truly brings me joy and peace? Solitude is the mirror that shows your real self. Let me share a story. There was a young woman always surrounded by friends, colleagues, and social engagements. On the outside, she seemed happy, admired, and busy. But inside, she felt an emptiness she couldn't explain. One day, she decided to spend a weekend alone in her home with no distractions. She walked in her garden, journaled her thoughts, and reflected on her life. By the end of the weekend, she had discovered passions and dreams she never knew existed. She realized that in the absence of constant external noise, her inner voice became louder, clearer, and truthful. Solitude allows you to peel away the layers, expectations, judgments, and assumptions to uncover who you really are. It is a journey of self-discovery. And here's a secret. The more time you spend with yourself, the stronger your sense of identity becomes. You stop seeking approval and start living with authenticity. Think of solitude like a still lake. When the water is turbulent, you cannot see your reflection clearly. But when the lake is calm, the reflection is sharp, precise, and true. Similarly, the busyness of life clouds your self-awareness. Alone time calms the waters, letting you see who you truly are. And the beauty of self-discovery is that it leads to self-love. When you know yourself deeply, you stop fearing rejection. When you understand your values, you stop seeking validation. Solitude nurtures the relationship you have with yourself, the most important relationship in your life. Independence is a skill, a mindset, and a form of freedom. When you constantly rely on others for happiness or security, you give away your power. You start living for approval rather than purpose. Being alone teaches you self-reliance. It shows you that you are enough, you can face challenges, navigate uncertainty, and make decisions without seeking permission. Consider this. A tree standing alone in a storm must rely on its roots to survive. If it leans on another tree for support, it falls. But if its roots are deep, it stands unshaken. You are like that tree. Solitude strengthens your roots, your resilience, courage, and self-belief. Let me share another story. A man depended heavily on his friends for emotional support. Every decision, every step seemed incomplete without their approval. One day, circumstances forced him to travel alone for a month. Initially, he felt scared and lonely. But during the journey, he realized he could handle challenges on his own. He could make decisions without seeking validation. By the end of the trip, he returned stronger, more confident, and self-assured. Independence gives you freedom. It reduces fear, it makes you unstoppable, and it comes from embracing alone time. Being independent does not mean you avoid relationships. It means you bring wholeness into them. You stop being needy, clingy, or dependent. You contribute from a place of abundance rather than lack. Solitude teaches this invaluable lesson. When you are whole alone, your relationships thrive. Have you ever felt lost, overwhelmed, or unsure about life? Perhaps you felt like you're constantly running, yet not moving in the right direction. This confusion often arises because life is noisy. Opinions, expectations, advice, sometimes conflicting, flood our minds. Family, friends, colleagues, social media, they all pull us in different directions. And in the midst of all this noise, clarity becomes rare, almost like trying to see the stars through a city's bright lights. Solitude is clarity. When you step away from distractions, you create space for your mind to breathe. Alone, you can reflect, think deeply, and observe your life as it truly is. You can ask yourself questions that matter. Am I living for myself, or am I living to please others? Are my choices aligned with my values and my goals? What path will bring me true fulfillment? Let me share a story. A young professional was juggling work, family responsibilities, and social life. He felt constantly exhausted, confused, and lost in a whirlpool of obligations. One week, he decided to take a break from all social interactions. He went for long walks in nature, wrote freely in his journal, and meditated in silence. By the end of the week, he discovered clarity not from advice given by others, but from listening to his own inner wisdom. Suddenly, decisions that had seemed impossible felt simple, priorities became clear, and the path forward revealed itself like fog lifting from a quiet morning landscape. Think of your mind as a cluttered room. Conversations, opinions, and distractions pile up like furniture, leaving barely any room to move. Solitude acts like a gentle cleaning process. As you remove unnecessary noise, the floor becomes visible, the foundation of your life. And once that foundation is clear, your decisions, priorities, and purpose become unmistakable. True clarity does not come from external validation. It comes from within. Alone time gives you the mental space to evaluate, reflect, and align your life with what truly matters. In that space, confusion dissolves, and a sense of direction emerges, steady, grounded, and uniquely yours. Being alone is not stagnation, it is preparation. Growth is not something that simply happens when life is easy or when people surround us with constant validation. True growth comes from reflection, introspection, and deliberate action, and these often flourish in solitude. When you step away from the noise of the world, you allow your mind and heart the space to stretch, to question, and to evolve. When we are constantly surrounded by people, we can unconsciously fall into comfort zones. Life becomes predictable, repetitive, and safe. We avoid difficult conversations, suppress uncomfortable truths, and shy away from self-examination. In the company of others, it's easy to rely on routines and avoid facing our weaknesses. But solitude challenges us. Alone, there is no one to distract you from yourself. There is no one to hide behind. And in that quiet, you are forced to confront your fears, acknowledge your mistakes, and take responsibility for your own happiness. Consider the clay analogy. A lump of clay looks ordinary, shapeless, and unremarkable. But under the hands of a skilled potter, pressure is applied, curves are formed, and the clay is molded into something beautiful and strong. Solitude is like the potter's hands. Life's pressures may come from within your thoughts, your reflections, your challenges, but alone you have the mental space to let these forces shape you into a better version of yourself. In quiet moments, your soul is molded into someone wiser, more resilient, and more compassionate. Let me share a story. There was a young woman who constantly sought the company of others. She feared being alone, thinking that solitude was loneliness. She spent her days hopping between friends, social gatherings, and activities, yet she felt restless, distracted, and unfulfilled. One day, she decided to commit to spending her weekends alone, no distractions, no social obligations. She read books, wrote her thoughts in a journal, meditated, and took long walks in nature. Initially, it felt uncomfortable. She confronted emotions she had ignored, regrets she had buried, and fears she had denied. But slowly she noticed a transformation. She became more disciplined, thoughtful, and self-aware. Her mind became clearer, her priorities sharper, and a sense of self stronger. By the end of the month, she had gained clarity about her goals, a newfound confidence, and a deeper understanding of her own desires. Growth happens in the space between obligations, between distractions, and between noise. It happens when life slows down enough for you to notice yourself, when your thoughts have room to breathe, and when you can confront the truths you've been avoiding. Solitude gives you that precious space. It is in these quiet, unhurried moments that you grow, not because someone taught you or told you to, but because you chose to, because you reflected, and because you allowed yourself the time and space to evolve. Alone time is not empty, it is fertile. It is the soil where resilience, wisdom, and self-awareness take root. And when growth emerges from this space, it is authentic, it is deep, lasting, and unshakable. Being alone is a choice, a conscious, courageous choice to honor yourself, your growth, and your purpose. It is not about escaping life, it is about preparing to live it fully. So the next time you feel pressure to constantly be around others, remember solitude is freedom, solitude is clarity, solitude is growth, and solitude reminds you that you are enough exactly as you are. Step back, embrace yourself, reflect, grow, because sometimes you're not just better alone, you're unstoppable.